Hello, friends, and welcome to the Bikes or Death podcast. My name is Patrick, and I am your host. And I've got another really exciting episode for y'all today. Joining me on the podcast is Scotti Lechuga, who is the overall 2021 Arkansas High Country Race winner and new women's FKT holder. This year's Arkansas High Country was crazy. She finished in 5 days, 10 hours, and 49 minutes, which is absolutely insane. Scotti is no stranger to cycling or to the Arkansas High Country Race. She's a former professional road cyclist who found her way to ultra endurance racing. She's been on the podcast before with her husband and riding partner, Ernie Lechuga. After they set an FKT on the Arkansas High Country for couples, they did that in 5 days and 18 hours and 24 minutes, and then came back as a couple the next year in 2020 and almost took an entire day off that time. So they did that in 4 days, 22 hours, and 5 minutes. Her and her husband also own Natural State Rockin' Republic, which we're going to talk about on today's episode, what it is, what they do there, so I won't rehash it all right here. And they also run LeBorn Coaching, and they teach other people how to have successful cycling careers or even just how to enjoy cycling more. So she is a wealth of knowledge and just a beautiful person. A personal hero of mine, and I was really grateful that she was willing to meet up with me in Tulsa, Oklahoma. My fam and I were up in Stillwater for the Truffle Shuffle, which was a great time. Shout out to all my Stillwater peeps. It was great to see a lot of familiar faces and get to meet some new folks out there. It was a really great party on a bike. If you want to know what the Truffle Shuffle is, nobody knows what the Truffle Shuffle is, but if you like fun, if you like bikes, if you like beer, if you like to have fun while riding bikes and drinking beer with fun people, then that is Truffle Shuffle. Definitely worth checking out. I heard they already released the dates for spring, and hopefully I'll be able to make it up back for that event as well. But while I was up in the area, Scotti was kind enough to actually she drug her whole family into a conference room in the hotel I was staying at for this conversation, and I really enjoyed this conversation. I enjoyed the first episode that we did together with her husband. I equally enjoyed this one. She is such a thoughtful and well-spoken person. She has a lot of cycling experience and life experience, and she takes all that, and I just really appreciate her approach to cycling and herself and how open and honest she is about, where she's at in her life, where she's at in relation to where she wants to be, and how she makes plans to accomplish, whatever goals she's trying to set out to do. I took a lot away from this episode, and I hope that you do as well. But before we get to today's episode, why don't we take a moment to thank the people that made this episode possible, starting with our newest group of patrons that have stepped up to be sustaining members of the Bikes or Death podcast. So let's put our hands together for Charles Matthew Hudson, Kyle Day, Kevin Spitcher, Jill Holloway, Rance Stanley, Cynthia Sayer, Kyle Beckel, Noah Baker, David Betty, Taryn Davis, and Nate Branch. Thank you so much for helping to keep my coffee cup filled and my bourbon glass running over. Thank you all so much for stepping up to support the Bikes or Death podcast, and I will see you on the other side at the after party. Everybody else, if you've been enjoying these episodes and the greater body of work over here at Bikes or Death, please consider signing up to help keep these episodes coming in hot and fast. You can find out more over at patreon.com/bikesordeath. Where do you do your online shopping when it's time to get new bike gear? Recently, I needed some new winter gear. We don't use it very often in Texas, but every once in a while it gets a little chilly and you want to be well dressed. And I use competitivecyclist.com. Do you spend hours researching your dream bike? I know I do. Most of us love this stuff almost as much as the experts at competitivecyclist.com. Competitive Cyclist is the online specialty retailer of road and mountain bikes, components, apparel, and accessories, featuring cycling's standard brands like POC, Castelli, Pearl Izumi, and 510, and an unrivaled in-house bike assembly operation. They bring the personal attention of the best local bike shops along with the selection and convenience only possible with online shopping. But the real difference at Competitive Cyclist are the gearheads. Equal parts customer service and cycling fanatics. Gearheads are former pro athletes, Olympians, and seasoned cyclists with years of experience. All available by phone, email, or chat for production recommendations and hard-won advice. Competitive Cyclist has 100% guaranteed returns. So go to competitivecyclist.com/bikesordeath and enter promo code BikesOrDeath, all one word, to get 15% off your first full price purchase, plus free shipping on orders of $50 or more. Some exclusions apply. Go right now and get 15% off plus free shipping at competitivecyclist.com/bikesordeath and enter promo code BikesOrDeath. Today's episode is also brought to us by Kuat. Y'all know I love my Kuat bike rack, and I'm really excited about this new Piston Pro X. Did you know that just like the Bikes or Death podcast, the Piston Pro X is 99% metal? That's right. 99% metal. It's burly and designed to take on all the adventure you can throw at it. And with bomb-proof materials like genuine Kashima coat, Tiger Drylac powder coat, and hard-wearing IGUS bushings that will keep this rack looking beautiful over the years of demanding mileage and use. Additional features include one-hand, one-tap hydro-pneumatic tire arms, which means zero contact on the bike frame. High-strand, semi-integrated 12-millimeter cable locks for security and integrated LED taillights for safety. Plus, they look cool. Plus, simple tool-free adjustable tire chalk slides for all bike sizes and tires. These and many other features culminate into a rack designed, built, and tested to push the envelope and provide unparalleled ease of use, peace of mind, and lasting value. Get to your local bike shop or online retailer and ask to order one of these badass racks now. Shipping starts spring of 2022. You know why? Kuat, because you love your bike. All right, everybody, we did it. It is time to get to my conversation with Scotti Lechuga, your 2021 Arkansas High Country winner and new women's FKT holder. But first, let's have Miles Arbor kick it off with the Bikes or Death theme song.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends or you could be alone. You ride for a day or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. Everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You let that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes or death. Bikes or death. Podcast.
Well, since we were coming to Tulsa, we found out there's this awesome outdoor playground called The Gathering Place. And it's got towers and like rope swings and zip lines and all kinds of cool stuff over there. If you guys have time to do it in the morning, you should.
We might have
Beautiful.
some time, actually.
Yeah. How old's your daughter?
So we have two. Or
two.
I
Okay.
should say I have two. Check. Let's get those levels right about there. Yeah, I have a 5-year-old and a almost 12-year-old.
Okay.
How old are yours?
They're 10. And I kind of told them if you stay together, you can just go and do your thing. And they did. I checked on them a few times. But Like your 12-year-old would be fine just to explore.
Yeah.
It felt really safe there. I mean, we just kind of said, just go. And they went. And they were like climbing all over the place.
I saw on your Instagram just a second ago, while I was sitting here, I was creeping, and it looks pretty cool. It's just basically like a huge jungle gym type.
It was so cool
type thing.
Yeah, and we didn't know how popular it would be, but like finding parking on a Sunday afternoon, it was hard.
Well, it's not that banging because this restaurant that we're at is like closed and the bar's closed.
Yeah, the
Bummer.
Sunday scene I feel like is seasonal here maybe, because in the summer it was open like really late. We've come here, I don't know, like not in the past couple of summers, but every summer before that I was here for Tulsa Tough because I used to be a roadie. Remember?
Oh yeah, I remember. I love your hair.
Oh, thanks.
You always have great hair.
Oh, thank you.
You always do the God, I can't remember the show. It was called Vikings. Did you ever see it?
Yes, I did.
The chick with she had blonde hair and she had the braids going down.
Yes.
I cannot remember her name.
Power braids. I'm all about the power braids.
Yeah, it's a good look. I just noticed.
It's like my everyday go-to.
Well, it's probably easy because
short is easy. Yeah, I've had it short ever since.
Well, plus braids, then you don't have to worry about. I don't know much about hair. My hair is.
Yeah.
I got beard hair. That's about all I know.
Yeah, you can get some power braids in there.
I could. Thank you for coming to meet with me.
Absolutely.
Here today.
I was honored. I was trying to remember. It's been almost exactly 2 years since I've talked to you.
Has it been
face-to-face.
2 years?
I mean, I think I've seen you since then, but not.
Yeah, we've definitely
podcasted.
seen each other.
Yeah.
I just can't. I guess it was because it was before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it doesn't feel like 2 years because, as we know,
It's a warp.
2020 never happened.
Yes, I know.
And so it's like we just kind of forget about that. And it's been a year.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention, as we're kicking this off here, that even before you won the Arkansas High Country this year, I don't remember why. Every once in a while, I'll go back and like listen to one of my episodes.
Yeah.
And it's very rare. I better. Oh, thank you. Thanks, you.
Thanks, you.
I've already had enough to drink.
Oh, just got a beer delivered.
Spring in the Iron Monk.
Oh, listen to that.
Yeah. So I was, thank you, sir. Yeah, I was, for whatever reason, I was like, man, I'm going to listen to that episode that we did together.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, because I had really
cool.
fond memories of it.
Yeah.
Like, I went into that episode, and I don't know if I disclosed this at the time, but woefully unprepared.
Yeah.
Much like today. I don't have any notes, but
Sure.
But I don't know. Like I was very busy and I just didn't have a lot of time to like prepare maybe or whatever. But I go back and forth with that because sometimes it's like, it's good to just be surprised and like learn about the story. Like I did with y'all. I was like, oh wow, this is really crazy.
Yeah.
If I had like read it all before or known it before, then maybe it wouldn't have been as exciting. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed that episode. I enjoyed meeting y'all like a lot. I love y'all's story.
Thank you.
I love that y'all are both parents. I love the whole living in a van with your kids and everything.
Yeah.
So I want to like strongly encourage people to go back and listen to that episode. I think it was 36.
I don't know your number.
Dude, let's see how good I am.
It was a while ago.
Let's see how good I am.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 36. I'm just going to throw that out there. But it's been a minute, but really genuinely it's one of I won't say, I don't like to compare them, but I really enjoyed that conversation and getting to know y'all.
It was good. Yeah.
But for this to be like a standalone episode, do you want to share, a summary of like your entry into, first with road cycling and then how you've kind of evolved into where you are now?
Absolutely. I was wondering if we would segue from that previous episode because I haven't listened to it since basically when you published it originally. So it's like, I can't remember what all I shared and I didn't want to double over myself, but
yeah, I think it's good. We'll just give people an overview and then they can go back and listen to the full thing,
Yeah. Okay. So I found cycling late 20s, which in the game of this sport is pretty late in terms of competitive years. I had been a runner all through my youth and got injured, and you guys all know that story. But I turned to cycling after having been kind of away from sport for a few years, really missed just the competitive discipline of just training for stuff and having that carrot to chase, and competition has always been really fun for me, something I enjoy. And so I hunted down the only professional cyclist I could find in Arkansas, which was Ernie Lechuga. And at the time, I kind of bombarded him in the bike shop with a plea to coach me. And he said, have you even ridden a road bike? Because at the time I had this beater mountain bike that was like a $300 bike. It had no business being on any mountain bike trail.
Yeah.
He's like, first of all, you have the wrong bike. Second of all, you want to turn professional? Are you kidding me? Like, you don't even have any experience. And so he gave me this challenge of...
Yeah, I think you skipped that part, but you were tracking him down because you had this idea of wanting to pursue...
Yeah. I don't even... It wasn't even realistic at the time to go from...
You just wanted to be competitive.
I wanted to be an athlete. Like, that's from the time I was a little girl. That is kind of what I had dreamed of being. And I tried to find... fulfillment in other areas of my life. For a while, I was painting. I was an artist and showed in galleries, and that was fun. But it wasn't like pursuing my purpose. And so I did this circle back to sport. And when I did, I was like, I need help. I need help. And I've always been the kind of person who, if I don't know, I'm going to find the most qualified person in my area and try and hound them for information or pay them for information or whatever it is I can get to surround myself with people that know more than I do about what I want to know. And so I found Ernie, and he agreed to take me on a 40-mile bike ride. And at the time, I don't think I'd ridden more than 8. I mean, I was basically like a bike path rider. In
Arkansas with steep hills.
Yeah. And so he takes me on this 40-mile bike ride and tells me if I can hang on his wheel, that he'll think about coaching me.
Oh, wow.
So I never drafted. I'd never been in a group ride, and he takes me out on this bike ride. And I want to say, we maybe averaged like 18 or 20 miles an hour, which for me at the time was extremely hard. I was bonked at like mile 25. So this pro rider's like got me on his wheel, and I hang in there, and we get a Coke at like mile 30. And at the time I didn't drink sodas. I've taken a radical shift since then. But so he hands me a Coke, brings me back to life, and he's like, all right, I think you have what it takes. Like, I'll give you some coaching. And so that's honestly how we met. And for a long time, we were coach and athlete. And through that whole experience, we eventually fell in love and started dating. And then boom, had babies, like 2 at once. So,
boom.
Yeah, that was a big surprise.
No, that's boom, boom.
Yeah.
That's 2
double
babies.
Whammy,
Double
instant family. Like, here we are having twins.
Yeah.
And so at the time, I actually was very depressed that I got pregnant. That was not part of my plan. Didn't really see that in my future at all, but decided I wanted to keep the kids. Went ahead and had the boys. And I actually didn't turn pro until after I'd had the boys. And so
road cycling.
Yes. And so I dabbled in some crit racing before I had the kids, and then took a complete, year and a half away from everything. Because when you have twins, you are ridiculously large. By the time you're like 4 months pregnant, you look like you're having a single. Right. Like at 40 weeks.
You look full term at 4.
Yes.
Yeah, halfway through you look full term.
So yeah, I took a lot of time off. And after having the boys, Ernie worked with me on bike handling skill, because he's like, if you can learn a corner, if you can learn to sit in a group, if you can tackle all the tactics of bike racing first, you're going to be able to hide in the peloton, and you don't have to be as fit as everybody else. You just have to be smart about how you use your energy.
Right.
And so the whole first year, all I did was criterium racing, and I learned how to be really group savvy. And that really helped me a lot. I think a lot of women go to the sport being strong riders, and they struggle with the handling part. And it was the opposite for me. I was a very weak rider, but I could fake it for a long time.
Do you think that would extend also to men? Like, just from my own perspective, we're sitting in Tulsa, where Tulsa Tough happens.
Yeah, I love it here.
The first ever crit race I ever witnessed was here.
Yep.
And it scared the shit out of me.
It's so high octane.
It's like, I don't know. I'm curious. I've never done one, but I would assume men or women would have a learning curve.
For sure.
Getting into that kind of group, that close, that high pace.
If you can feel comfortable in that setting, you can basically ride anywhere.
Did you ever feel comfortable in that setting?
Yeah, I loved it.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I got to the point where I was really comfortable and confident with being, elbow to elbow with other riders. And it's something that Some people learn quickly and others it takes longer, and for me, it just came really quick. And so I was lucky in that I could get in a Peloton and hide, and I could make it to the end of a bike race. And by the end of my first year, I was finishing top 10 in some pretty big races like nationals, and got selected for the national team. And then the next year got a pro contract. And so I entered the sport professionally in 2014. I had a great run. In 2016, that was probably my best season ever. I was winning some pro races and getting on the podium pretty often. And after that, I just had a kind of bummer year. I had some of the best power numbers I'd ever had, but like the lowest self-esteem that I'd ever had. And so I had been really struggling with mentality, and that's not something I often share, but or I didn't in the moment, because in women's cycling, especially in America, so many people are fighting for so few spots. Unfortunately, it's not like gravel where it's like, yay, everybody, we're going to give hugs and drink beer.
Yeah.
At the end of a bike race, it's sometimes, especially in the women's sport, just super competitive. And, I look back now and I wish that I had been more open-hearted and open-minded in trying to grow the sport more like I see it now, because I think there really is a void for camaraderie there.
Yeah.
A lot of women are vying for spots. And in America, there aren't very many spots. And I think road racing in general is in danger in America of just disappearing.
Really?
Yeah, I really do. I think it's kind of the trend that we're seeing is criterium racing. Yeah, that's fun. And there's a lot of money in it.
Closed course.
Yeah, it's spectator friendly. But the road race, stage races in particular, are struggling.
Yeah.
And so I feel very fortunate that I got to do that, because that style of racing really suits me. I like tactics, I like strategy, and like a 5-day stage race is right up my alley. I loved it. But in 2018, I was really struggling with just being really hard on myself, putting a lot of pressure on myself. And I can't remember if I shared this on the last episode that I did with you. I had a coach at the time, Kristen Armstrong, and I've told her this story. It's come full circle for both of us now.
Okay, I don't recall.
But I was coached by Kristen Armstrong, who's a 3-time Olympic gold medalist in the time trial. And the reason I wanted to work with her is because she was so mentally tough. I mean, to be a time trialist, you have to just be tough as nails. And that's where I sucked. I could hide in the Peloton all day and be really crafty and like break away. I was that type of rider. But when it came to just me on my bike versus time, I was terrible. And so I worked with Kristen that year, and she knew I was kind of struggling to make a breakthrough with myself. And eventually we just had this conversation. She said, Scotti, you're not mentally tough enough to get to where you want to be right now. And at the time, I wasn't ready to hear it. And it just kind of crushed my soul a little bit. But, fast forward like 6 months later, after I stepped back from the sport, reevaluated what I wanted from it, I was like, she's right. I really was missing the mental toughness aspect. That is what stood between me and cracking through that next level. And so I was like, what can I do to get mentally tough?
All right.
And so I literally Googled hardest bike race in the world, and Silk Road Mountain Race shows up.
Yeah. Okay.
Red Bull had rated it that year. The first year it came out was 2018. And in 2019, here I am looking for hardest bike race in the world. I'm going to go tackle that. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I signed up Ernie and myself as a pair, because at the time I was terrified to do anything like that alone. Still am terrified to do that kind of thing alone. But Ernie agreed to do it.
It's a far cry from road racing.
Oh
and
my
a
gosh,
Peloton
we didn't own a single, I didn't camp back then.
Yeah.
I stayed in hotels.
Right.
I didn't have.
You get the masseuse. You
Yeah,
get, coffee
team car, bringing you bottles, and we didn't own bikes for that type of challenge. We didn't own the gear. And so
And Ernie was actually supporting you, as your coach and like your partner and everything. As
oh
you're
yeah,
going. Like,
I never
like
touched my bicycle.
Yeah.
Throughout my professional career. If it wasn't Ernie,
again, you got to listen to the other episode to hear about Ernie's story.
Yeah,
he's here. Hey,
cheers.
Cheers. Sorry.
No, I never wrenched on a bike my entire pro career. Or either Ernie fixed it or my team mechanic fixed it. And so here we are tackling this self-supported endurance challenge of Silk Road Mountain Race, which is less of a bike race and literally more of a how tough are you adventure.
Yeah.
And so that was just life-changing for me. We got out there and dealt in situations that I'd never been in before. I mean, blizzards and high altitude up to 14,000 feet where you're just hiking a bike because the terrain is too rough to ride. And I mean, 10 days, it almost took us 10 days to finish, and it was a little over 1,000 miles. And so we got done with that. And I finally felt like I had cracked through that place. And
I would hope so.
yeah. And I came home from that with like a lot of fire in my heart again. Not so much for being competitive, but like why I loved cycling in the first place and what it had taught me, and then how I could also share that with people. And so it was a really good 180 in my personal journey with cycling. It took me from being very inwardly focused with performance and podiums and winning and just all that pressure that got locked up inside of me when I was road racing. And it gave me this perspective of that it's my lifestyle. It's my long-term goal. It's about the growth. It's about the process. And when I changed where that attention was, it took a huge burden off of me. And it not only allowed me to kind of step into the sport again with a bigger heart, but also gave me the ability to share it with more people, which is something that I really didn't do when I was road racing, and something that I regret not doing when I was road racing is bringing other people in along for that journey.
You'd be bringing in your competition.
Yeah, I know, which it's stupid because it's like, it doesn't matter how many watts you can push. It's how you race with that strength. You know, it's how you handle yourself in the context of a bike race. I mean, there are so many people that are strong, but maybe don't race well. And so it's silly to think that I had to hold that up my sleeve the whole time. It's not true. Like I could have been more open the whole time.
Well, it's a culture you were in.
It is. It's
and
very
I mean, we're
much
all
so.
on a journey. And I mean, similar to you, I wasn't at near the same level, but I was big into trying to be like an XC mountain bike racer. I mean, just locally in Texas, but I was like going after it, you know, and I got more into the like endurance stuff, and it's fine. I mean, people love that shit, you know, and that's cool. But yeah, once I flipped the perspective on what cycling meant to me, it kind of opened up more doors. And now I don't know. Now it can serve more purposes than just that one singular thing. Just opens a lot more doors, I feel like.
Absolutely. That's been my experience. And since then, it's just been like a whirlwind, honestly. So we did Silk Road in 2019. Came home from that with having been bitten by this ultra bikepacking bug. Yeah. You know, it's pretty amazing. And I think the reason it's so contagious is because of how much you grow inside yourself when you push yourself to those limits. And nothing will push you like a long bike ride. Yeah. So
when else in your life are you ever put in that situation?
Yeah.
You know, like really where you're out there on your own and things are very, very tough, and there's just you and your bike and whatever you brought with you to get you back to wherever you're going. I mean, we just don't do that as humans anymore. And to give yourself that opportunity to find out how tough you are, or even find out where your weaknesses are and find out where you can improve. It's a great opportunity. I'm reading a book right now, actually by Jewel. It's a fantastic.
I love her.
I am becoming a huge fan.
She's so brilliant.
I had no idea. I just listened to a podcast with her and I'm like, oh, you're like my new like life teacher. But Never Broken by Jewel, the book. Highly recommend it. She talks about the value of being in silence and spending time with yourself and your own thoughts and working through whatever. And that's something that resonates with me in this fast-paced world that we don't do enough. And, you know, 1,000 miles on your bike is a great time to spend some time in your head and work through some stuff.
A friend recently asked me, didn't you get bored while you were out there? And
that's a good question.
I was like, no. It was like being in a flow state for 5 days.
Really?
Yes. It was incredible. Like, you're so inwardly thoughtful. And I think part of that is when I am at home, it's like kids, business, coaching, workout, you know, it's like full capacity, high paced days. And then all I have to do is ride my bike through tough terrain. I mean, it's hard. Don't get me, it's freaking hard, but it's also freeing. because all I have to think about is myself in that moment. And so I loved it just because it's such a hard challenge, but also such an opportunity to go inward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's simpler in some ways. I mean, it's maybe more challenging than your day-to-day life, like physically challenging and mentally challenging, but it's also, in the inverse of that, it's also much simpler than your normal life. So it's just an interesting paradox.
It is.
What else can we say about your entry into bike packing? I mean, you and Ernie both, you continue to do quite a few couples things, including doing the high country, I believe, twice.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I can't believe I've done that route 3 times now. Like I said the first time that I would never do it again.
I think everybody says that.
In 2019, Ernie and I decided we would tackle it as a pair and that we would just kind of push ourselves. We came home from Silk Road Mountain Race with the knowledge that this course had just been created. I mean, 2019 was the inaugural year that race, the Arkansas High Country Race, had started. And so we're like, man, this awesome route is in our backyard. We need to go try it. And so we did it that year and set a pairs record, which really was just, I mean, no one had done it as a pair. So I hate to say that we...
Y'all still set a pretty fast time. It was like 5 days.
It was like 5 days, I think 22 hours or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm remembering.
And then...
So it's still a legit time.
Yeah, we
and
pushed
honestly,
ourselves.
we talked about this the first time, like, and I've talked to other couples that have ridden together, and this is a trick that I figured out, is just being like good with your time management. So like if you have a flat tire, Ernie should be like cooking or eating or cleaning or doing something, but always utilizing time, and so there's more logistical challenges that come along with doing a pairs thing. So I don't think you should discount it too much. Y'all put up a legit time.
Yeah, it was fun, and we did push ourselves. And then we decided to go do Atlas Mountain Race in February of 2020, and that was
awesome.
Literally, we had heard about COVID the week before we flew out to Morocco. Yeah. We're like, oh, it's not going to be a big thing, right? Oh my gosh, little did we know. But Morocco was very, how do I say it? We learned a lot through failure. We went to race and decided that we wanted to try and be very competitive as a pair and chose completely incorrect tires for the adventure at hand. Day 1, I sliced my sidewall a good inch and a half. And so we stopped and Ernie booted it and we went to air it up and we only had a hand pump. And we couldn't get the darn tire to reseat.
If I remember, y'all were freezing cold at the time as well. Is that right? Or was that a different time?
Not this one. That was a different one. Yeah, that was a different one. On day 1, it was not cold yet. And but
that was later on.
The problem was that our hand pump wouldn't provide enough boost to reseat the tire after it. Because you have to drain the sealant first before you boot it. And so we'd put a tube in and went to air it up, and we couldn't get the tire to reseat. The rims that we had at the time were, they just had this funny way of fitting tires, and we couldn't get it to seat, which is not good because then when you start to roll again, you're rolling on uneven. And so the tire was not fully seated, and so it was rubbing on the rim above the bead. And as that was happening, it was de-threading the tire above the bead. And so we were aware it was happening, but at the same time, we had tried our best to air it up and couldn't do anything else about it. And so we were like, okay, we just got to keep riding. And fast forward 4 flats later, we were out of tubes. We'd patched tubes. Ernie started sewing the tire back together where it was de-threading. He unstitched thread from his shirt, hand stitched the tire, and then it kept on spreading from there.
He took thread from his shirt and hand stitched the tire.
We had smart wool.
Holler Ernie.
I know.
That is some bushwhacking shit.
I watched this guy do some crazy voodoo on a tire.
That's
so not
awesome.
only did that happen, but because it kept on de-threading along the sidewall, he also took a Coke bottle, cut a rectangular strip out of it, taped it to the inside, sewed that to the tire to try and reinforce the sidewall.
Oh my God.
And then we found a tire shop in this town in Morocco that happened to have a tire inflator.
Okay.
So we finally get the tire to seat and we're like, yes, this is going to be our answer, right? Well, it just didn't stop from there. And we eventually Ernie's hands were so gnarly and worked from trying to, the rims that we had brought were just like impossible to get the tires on and off of.
Yeah.
And so he and I together, like our fingers were just like blistered and raw. At like 1 a.m. when we flatted for like the 8th time, we just gave up on it and called in for help and abandoned the race and got back to the home base where the finishers are. And I think we'd mentioned in our first podcast that we'd done some training with Jay Peterberry, and we'd gone to seek some help from him. Because like I said, I like to, when I don't know things, I like to seek out people who do. And so we'd gone and trained with Jay in Idaho before Silk Road Mountain Race.
You did his Fat Pursuit camp, or?
We're getting ready to.
Oh, you're about to, okay.
Yes. So we became good friends with Jay. And Jay was actually coming into the finish about the time that we were landing at the finish from a car. And we get out of the car and he goes, "What the hell are you guys doing here?" And we're like, "Well, we started to tell him our story." He's like, "Save it for later. I want to hear what happened, but not right now." I was like, "Okay, cool." Because it was his finish. It was important for him the limelight needed to be on him for sure.
Plus he was probably tired.
He was probably wrecked. But
anyway, just want to hear when he could
gets,
actually process it.
He gets some rest. All of us reconvene and he's like, "Tell me what happened, guys." And so we start to tell him about all these things that had happened to our tire. And he goes, "Couldn't you have taken a pair of tires from somebody else who'd abandoned the race? Or could you have called like a bike shop or anything?" And we were like, "Well, yeah, but if we did that, we would be disqualified." And he goes, "Doesn't fucking matter. Finish, guys. Like, just do whatever it takes to finish. Don't worry about your place. Don't worry about just being disqualified. Learn to finish first.
Yeah.
Do whatever it takes to do that. And then you'll have the satisfaction of knowing you came to Morocco to finish a goal and you did it." And that really stuck with me because it made me realize that it really brought me back to where I was in road cycling, which is the performer, right? So if we had taken assistance from another rider, it would mean that we were DQ'd from finishing. Mm-hmm. But so what? Like, we were in Morocco to race our bikes. We should have tried other options, Yeah. And so hearing that from Jay, it really opened my eyes to what my goals really are and what I really wanted to get out of the racing experience. And so Ernie and I both came home from that with a little more like desire to be more creative and more adaptive and finishers versus racers. And I really like that mentality of like, you got to finish to be a racer in the first place, right? If you don't finish the bike race, you just participated in like a cool Morocco ride.
Yeah. I do want to take a little bit of issue though, because like, it's not like you got a tear and you tapped.
Yeah.
I mean, the dude was taking threads from his shirt, weaving the tire back together, and then taking the Coke bottle.
Yeah.
And, I often look, and I think many of us do, is like, these are learning experiences,
Yes.
And so like you're saying, you're like, there's a lot we learn from that. And maybe one of those things is prioritize just finishing.
Yeah.
By any means necessary, but sometimes, you just got to unlock that part of your brain, and you don't know until it's like road cycling. You're like, oh, okay, you unlock like adventure cycling, and now that's open, and now you unlock like, oh, steal a tire from somebody. It's just, I don't know.
For sure, it's been.
I feel like, I guess I was just like, man, I'm like, y'all like tried really hard to stay in that.
Did.
You didn't just like.
Right.
We'll tap out.
Yeah. No, there were hours on the roadside, trying to fix it. But
which is really impressive because I think those conditions are really, I wasn't even there, but I can maybe
it's a rough race.
Kind of imagine.
I think it really helped us. Like, we came home from that with a new set of priorities, which is, one, don't go to a gunfight with a knife, right? Suit up for these types of adventures. And I think coming from the roadie mentality that we both grew up with, Ernie was a pro road racer. That's my background. We think light, fast, aero, all of that goes out the window with bike packing. It's all about what can I take to prevent the worst case scenario. And if I have a little more than I need, that's not a bad thing.
100%.
Yeah. And so,
so many times on the podcast, I've talked to people who have failed through lack of not having enough
Yeah.
or not being prepared, and then they go back and they'll carry more stuff and then they'll wind up winning or just finishing or whatever their goal was.
Right.
But yeah, I've talked to many people that I think what you're saying, the reason I wanted to echo it is because I think it is important that don't show up to a gunfight with a knife.
Right.
Like, and I'm probably bad about it, being a podcast or a host of a show that talks to bike packers, is like downplaying the severity and how like hard these feats actually are. And so it's worth emphasizing, like, yeah,
Tough tires,
tough tires,
comfortable saddle,
all the things,
all the things.
You don't skip whatever you need, whatever that is. And everybody's going to be different, but
100%.
Go more than less.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of taking more than I need and not using it than not having what I need when I need it. So coming off of Morocco, then COVID happened and we all stayed home for months. And, Ernie and I got to do our first fun bike packing. So it's really funny because like Silk Road Mountain Race was our first bike packing experience other than going to train with Jay for a few days. And we'd never just gone exploring just for fun. So we did that in 2020. We went bike rafting, which was incredible. We went to the Buffalo River in Arkansas, which is about 2 hours from where we live.
We did that this last year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we did a little bike raft. We just bought our own pack rafts. We'll be here next week.
I'm so tempted to get some. We rented some.
We did. I talked to you because we rented from the pack raft rental place. Yeah, they sponsored like that whole trip that we did. So we did the same thing. I like, hey, you remember Scotti and Ernie? Like, yeah, we're doing the same thing.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, we just kind of branched out and had fun. And I think we needed to do that. It allowed us to explore our gear a little more and just learn to be outside a little more. Neither of us came up in families that did like mountain sports or cold weather sports or anything like that. And so then we decided to do the high country again after Jay came and beat our record. So he threw down like a 10-hour faster time than we did. And he did it in July. It was like 100 plus degrees and humidity. I mean, I know what Arkansas feels like that time of year, and I don't want to be on the top of a mountain on slippery gravel. Yeah. And so I was feeling for Jay while he was out there. It was a stellar effort. But after he did it in July, Ernie and I started looking at the route again, and we were like, we could totally whittle away some time at our last year time. We couldn't go anywhere. I mean, like going outside to any other race was really not an option at the time anyway, because everyone was still kind of semi on lockdown. Yeah. So we just decided to do the high country again, just as a personal pursuit, not the race, and did a time almost a whole day faster than the year before. And that was the first time that we hallucinated. That was like the deepest we'd ever gone.
Y'all both hallucinated at the same time?
We did. And so it was really funny because Ernie didn't want to tell me that he was hallucinating because he didn't want to freak me out. Uh-huh. But when I started hallucinating, I was like an open book. I was like, I'm having an out-of-body experience right now. I am watching myself ride my bike, Ernie. Like, I don't think I'm safe. I'm seeing things. Like I was narrating to him everything that I was experiencing, and I didn't know it at the time, but he was like going through the same thing. He was seeing like Optimus Prime and Transformers on the side of the road and all this crazy stuff.
That's foreshadowing to what we'll talk about later on about Ernie and not telling you about his injuries or other things that he's enduring.
You see a trend here?
Yeah.
Okay. So, we went really deep that year, broke 5 days. And then like a month later, Ted King comes and he just smashes, does a great solo time. And I know you can't always compare solo to Paris time. It's not the same. But still, it's so fun being an Arkansan to watch people that are notorious in the sport come and challenge themselves. Yeah. We have had Rebecca Rush, Jay Peterberry, now Ted King. These are big names in the sport that are coming to Arkansas, which is we love this state. We love where we are, and they're challenging themselves in our backyard, and it's so fun to just see these high profile people come and do the route.
It's been amazing.
It's been awesome. I mean, it's only like 3 years old.
It's interesting how Northwest Arkansas is It first through mountain biking, put a stamp on the map and said, hey, bikes come here.
Yep.
And now they're like cyclocross and bike packing.
Yes.
And they're just
They are
bikes.
just pouring resources.
Obviously, we're going to talk about Arkansas High Country Race, but before we get into that, the big thing that's happened since we last spoke was that y'all opened up your own business.
Yeah.
And we had talked about me coming out and like, I want to like experience what Ernie puts I don't know. He does the fitting, right? Ernie does the fitting.
Solely the only bike fitter. Yep.
Okay. But tell me, because I don't fully know, but it's a natural state, rock and republic.
Yes.
You were living in a bus last time I talked to you, and now you own a very nice business that you've like turned into a bed and breakfast /
It's a
bike
cycling
training.
retreat.
I don't know what it is. It's everything.
We don't really either some days. We're like, what is this place? No, it's been amazing. It was such interesting timing because, in 2020, when we were all kind of at home, Ernie and I kind of started thinking about where we wanted to take LeBourne Coaching, which is our coaching business. And a friend of ours had moved up to Northwest Arkansas and had started running downtown Springdale Alliance. And if you've heard about Northwest Arkansas, you've probably heard of Bentonville. Like that's the place, the bike trails, everything is there. Well, Springdale is just 18 miles south. And it is kind of the last of the cities up there to really kind of blossom again. It has a really cool downtown district, but just needed some life injected into it. And so our friend...
So is this south of Fayetteville?
It's north of Fayetteville, south of Bentonville. So we're right in the middle.
It's right on like
right on the Greenway.
Greenway, yeah.
It is on the Greenway, yeah. And our friend Jill has worked for the Downtown Springdale Alliance for 3 years and said, guys, there's this property you need to come look at. And we got there, and it was 6.5 acres on the Greenway with this 10-bedroom, 10-bath historic home, a cottage house, and a huge event center kind of space out back. And we were like, well, this is great, but what will we do with all this? We're just basically looking for a bike fitting and training studio, She's like, think big, guys. Like, seriously, write a proposal on how you would inject cycling into this experience and let me know what you come up with. And so like a month later, I wrote this proposal about how we would turn this into, an off the Greenway cycling retreat. And it would be a hub for locals and tourists alike, for people that are from the community to gather, and also people who are traveling to ride bikes to find a place where they could stay, where they could get their bikes taken care of while they were there. And so put all this together, fired it away, and the property owners came back and said, we want you guys here.
They made a good choice.
Yeah, it's turned out just brilliantly.
Well, y'all are managing the property extremely well from what I can tell. Very professional.
Thanks.
But also like community driven and cycling focused. But it seems like and I've been there. I haven't toured the whole facility, but we did a coffee outside and gear swap through Ozark gravel cyclists not too long ago. And so I got to, see the property a little bit. And I mean, it's a beautiful spot.
It's cool. Yeah, it's been really great.
So what all do y'all do there? You so you run your coaching out of there. You do fitting. I was actually talking to Blake earlier today, who I know comes in and utilizes y'all's facility. Do you offer like memberships to like if you just want to come in and like use your training gear? Like how do you actually interface with clients? So the studio is the back part of the property, and that's where Ernie Bike Fits and where we have Wahoo kicker stations set up. So anyone can come in and do their trainer workout on their own, but oftentimes in the winter, what we'll do is set up group classes, and that'll be where people can come in and do the same workout, but together, and they'll each have their own screen and be doing their workout at their, intensity, but it's a group-led workout. And we like to lead those kind of within our coaching philosophy, teaching people how to pedal more efficiently. And so it'll be like a coach-led workout experience. And then we also have VO2 testing and metabolic testing on site. So anybody metabolic?
Yeah, it's just a fancy word for basically learning if you are a carbohydrate or a fat burner, where your body kind of trends. And then we're able to tell people what their basal metabolism is. So that's helpful.
I'm a bourbon burner. I burn through my bourbon VO2 maxes.
Yeah.
I'd love to come and, this is why I'm interested in it, because what y'all are bringing is knowledge and experience from the pro side, like a very elite, high level, lots of money, side of cycling.
Yeah.
And you're bringing this and you're pulling it into bike packing and gravel riding and stuff, which is different. And most of the people that I know that I ride with, bike packers, aren't the guys going to get fit or girls or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So like, I think that there's a big opportunity for like bike fitting, nutrition, sports psychology. I mean, all kinds of stuff I think could build around the whole bike packing
for sure
world,
and even if you're not the kind of person who's going to go buy a power meter, everyone likes to grow. And everyone likes to have some numbers to prove that they're growing in the sport. And that's really where we kind of intersect with people along their own journey is at some point they want to see themselves get better. And so they'll look for some assistance with either a training program or maybe just assessing their heart rate values and learning where their threshold is and where they should train and things like that. And so a lot of times where we come in is telling people, hey, you're riding way too hard. You need to slow down some days and build your aerobic fitness. And if you're a bike packer, that's really where you kind of live on these long duration rides is you can't be redlined for 5 hours and then expect to recover and feel good for another 8. Like it just doesn't work that way. And so a lot of times we'll partner with people to help them kind of find that efficiency point and then develop a structure that works towards their goals better, and so,
learning how to do whatever you're trying to do more proficiently, more better, more comfortably, all of those are going to allow you to be more, enjoy it. I mean, even if you're not trying to be like a high level athlete, it's like, oh, I just want to go and enjoy this more, and get more out of it. Why not? I think it's great. I haven't been through it, but I think it'd be very interesting to go through your process and like pick up some of your tips and like apply them to my, I'm average cyclist type, just likes to go and ride. So I have a couple questions about this year's Arkansas High Country.
Sure.
First off, why solo? Because you and Ernie have, like you said, y'all have done quite a bit as a couple.
Yeah.
And so why solo? And then I'm very curious how you trained for this year's event.
Yeah.
And I want you to give away all your secrets so nobody
No, I'm an open
nobody
book.
ever has to Google LeBron coaching.
We get that a lot, actually. LeBron.
It does kind of just come out.
It does. Yeah. Just a 1-letter difference.
It's LeBron.
Yes, it is. But so the solo thing, have always talked about doing a solo race. But it's kind of like, okay, when and which one? And for the longest time, I mean, I think it's important for people to understand that I did not know how to do anything on my bike. Like this was a major limiter for me personally. And this is the first year that I actually did anything on my bike in pursuit of hopefully one day doing a solo adventure race on my own. I think having done it as a pair for so many times, Ernie and I both realized that we lean on each other for certain things. For me, he picks me up when I'm down because I always have like a moment of like where I'm at a low point. And he's always picked me up and encouraged me and said, hey, you got this, you can do this. And for him, I'm more of like the logistics person. I'm the one who's going to wake him up on time. Like he's a Mexican, guys. Like he can sleep anywhere. And it's like a talent. And I'll be laying there hearing dogs barking and I'm just wide awake, like out where we're camping. And he'll be just snoring, like completely
You're like
out.
my partner. I'm the one that I can sleep anywhere. I'm a great sleeper.
That is such a gift.
And she gets so mad because she's just like up listening to me snore.
That's us for sure.
Every morning I wake up, I'm like, all right, how bad was it last night?
Yeah. So it's just funny because you
lean on each other.
We have each other's backs in that regard.
And y'all have, I don't know, from the outside looking in, I really like your relationship. It seems like, and again, I would encourage people to listen to the first podcast where both of y'all were on there, but I like the way that y'all really support each other and the way like y'all work together and you've navigated like a family and like all these things that you want to do. And I know as a person who loves to adventure, like my daughters are with me, your family is sitting in the room with us now, it adds an extra level of all that. And to be able to manage all those things, I think adds, it's something that I respect about y'all because, we're similar age and both parents
Yeah.
and stuff. And so I can relate to how much harder it is to do this when you're
Totally.
being a parent.
Yeah,
You know,
it
which
throws-
is, they're both fun. They're both important.
Absolutely.
And figuring out what to juggle and make all that stuff work can be challenging, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And I think if we look around in the sport, we're in the
We're in the minority.
We're in the minority, especially you.
Yeah.
I say I'm in the sport. I just like to go ride my bike and go bikepacking.
Yeah.
But I mean, especially in racing, I mean, you don't see a lot of, moms out there at the front of the races,
That's right.
you know?
Yeah, it's so true. And it does throw an element. It is difficult in that it reduces the independence that you might have had if you were flying without kids. But I wouldn't be the same person that I am without the kids either. And so I don't even know that I would be where I am right now without my kids. So they've been such an integral part of my cycling experience. And I think Ernie and I, having had done several of these together, understood the amount of growth that we had each experienced within ourselves together.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
were
totally.
together.
You're
but
both growing. I mean,
Yes.
it's not like you were just incubated. I
That's
mean,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. And so we had talked to each other about eventually tackling a race by ourselves as solos, and that we would probably grow in a different way, in a unique way. And I think it's really cool to have, now I've had both experiences, I can see how each is incredibly valuable. So I'm glad that we had the pairs experience. And then I'm also glad that I got to step out and do a solo race. But for me, it felt good for this to be my entry solo race because it was a course I'd already done twice. I had familiarity with the terrain, the resupplies.
You could probably bail a little bit easier on this one than some other races.
Yeah, I mean-
you're in Kyrgyzstan, it's harder to bail.
Oh my gosh. And the language barrier too. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, we're speaking English here in Arkansas. Well, kind of.
Mostly.
Yeah. But I felt very comfortable with being in my own element in that regards. And so, I had a few concerns about solo racing, but I felt like this was like my time,
Yeah.
And we'd had some trips canceled for other out of the country. Like we wanted to go back and do Atlas Mountain Race, but it was canceled this year. And so, well, that was a bummer. But when that got canceled, we were like, okay, it's time to do the high country again. Even though we said we'd never do it again, let's just try it as solos and it'll feel like a completely new experience.
Sure. I have to think. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what we did. And for me, that meant learning some things about my bike and how to maintenance it. And it cracked me up because Ernie would go mess with something on my bike. And I would come into the garage and I'd be like, what's wrong with my bike? It's not shifting. And he had pulled my
He was
e-wires out.
sabotaging
He
you.
was.
I love it.
Little sucker.
I love it. Smart.
Yeah.
I mean, how else are you going to learn? My partner went into the bike shop and my buddy Connor works there and she was like going to pay him because I'm not the mechanic. It's like, I would need Ernie to help me, like, I'm like, go help, Connor will help you. So she goes in and he's like telling her everything. And she's like, okay, cool. I got it. He's like, no. Now you do it. Like, no, I'll do it later. He's like, no, you're going to do it now. And he just like made her, do it. And that's what you need to do.
I know.
Like, that's the only way to figure it out.
Yep. It is.
Anyway, sorry. That's pretty funny though. He's sabotaging your bike.
He would, and one day I even asked him, I was like, can you please make a list of the scenarios that could possibly happen to me? And he looked at me and he was like, are you kidding? No, like it could be anything. And he's like, you have to just be a problem solver. You have to know enough to understand where it's coming from and then what you can do about it. And he's worked on bikes since he was like, I don't know, 12. But it's funny because I'll even see him sometimes get stumped and he will work with something until he figures it out. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I don't have nearly the experience that he has, but he approaches things patiently. And that's what I've learned from watching him is like, he doesn't get frustrated in the moment. He assesses it, figures out something that he can do to make it better. And I was like, that's the attitude that I want to have going into this race is if something weird happens, I have to be calm. And that's hard when you're in the sense of urgency in the middle of a race. And so luckily I had very good luck. I only had one crazy flat scenario that it puzzled me for a while. I had a slow leak and I couldn't find where it was coming from. So I would air it up and it would just like 10 miles later be back to flat. And couldn't see any sealant. And so it was in the middle of the night, had poor light. And I rolled up to a town in Mount Ida, Arkansas. It's very small. There is one shady motel. And I roll up to the motel because it said vacancy. And I was like, oh, this would be so great. If I could just get a room, I could like charge my devices, fix my flat, take a shower. I could knock out so many things. And so I roll up, knock on the door because the light in the office was still on, even though it was like past midnight. And this guy opens the door. He's got a beard like 3 times longer than yours. And he's twirling it, which is kind of weird when you're a woman and you're like dealing with the twirling. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, should I pass on? But anyway, he opened the door. I asked him if he had a room. He said, no, I don't. And then there was like awkward silence. And I was like, okay, well, here's where I am right now. I'm like 600 miles into a bike race and I have a flat tire. I could really use a power outlet, and I can be outside. Like I can charge my things from outside of a room as well. If you could just point me to a wall outlet, if you could be so kind, they would really help me out. I need to fix a flat tire.
If you're not too busy twirling your beard.
Right? Yes. And so he kind of looks at me weird. Like I was messed up too, right? I mean, I looked a mess, total mess.
Yeah. He's probably looking at you like,
you are not normal. Right. And so, he goes back inside and brings out an Apple charger, like huge Apple charger. It has like 4 outlets, 4 USB ports, plugs it into an extension cord, and I'm like good to go because I can charge everything at once, which is awesome because my cash battery had died. And
I hope you charge your cash battery too.
I did. Nice. I charged everything,
yeah.
everything. And while I was charging everything, I started to look at my flat. Still couldn't find anything wrong with it. And I'm like, damn it, I don't want to drain all my sealant and like try and put a tube in because it's still a long way to go and the high country's rough. And if I could stay tubeless, that was my priority. And so I didn't ask him for anything, but the guy goes back inside and disappears for a few minutes and comes back out with a bottle of soapy water, a spray bottle full of soapy water. Yeah. And he's like, here you go. I was like, dude, how do you know this trick? He goes, well, I'm a cyclist. And he starts telling me about his bikes. And we have this full on conversation about like how long he's been riding. And he has 2 different bicycles. And he had watched YouTube on how to spot a hard to find flat. He went inside and like diluted his soap to bring me a bottle of soapy water.
That's so cool.
So I sprayed it on and it was immediately like evident that I had like 30 pinprick sized holes in my tire. And I was like, this is crazy. I'd run into thorns, I guess, but I don't know how it happened. But I finally knew like, okay, these holes are way too small to plug with any kind of bacon strip. So maybe I should just add more sealant. And I had sealant with me. And once I did that, I rolled around the parking lot a few times and everything held beautifully.
Oh, cool.
But I would have never been able to plug like 30 individual pinprick holes. And so who
carries 30 bacon strips with them?
I know. And the bacon strip wouldn't even fit in the hole.
I mean, I know we
so
talked
small.
about being prepared, but that's like over-prepared.
That's over, yeah.
That's
and
like
so,
too much.
I was so grateful like for this, shady motel guy who brought out the soapy water because it immediately solved my problem and I knew what to do next. But that was really the only tire problems that I had that whole race.
Was that your only mechanical problem that you had?
The only other mechanical I had was somehow, I think in changing, I had a lot of light failure. I ruined my charging port on my light. I went to plug it in and the whole port recessed into the body of the light. Like where you charge.
Oh, yeah.
Where you plug it in, it like pushed the whole thing in.
Yeah, you pushed it in and it went
and
all
it was
the
gone.
way.
It was like no more.
What kind of light?
Well, it was a Surface.
I'm not familiar with this.
Yeah. Probably not a good plug for Surface. But
it's okay. Surface, you should make a better light.
Yeah.
Just saying, or a better port. The light's fine, but the port's the problem.
Yeah, I was so sad when that happened because that was like my last, light. I call that a mechanical kind of, even though it wasn't on my bike. It was a major, it caused me to stop.
Part of your, equipment that you need to, ride at night safely.
Yes. So that cost me a lot of time. I ended up getting a new light in Russellville, thanks to the guys at Jackalope Cycling.
Holla.
And they're awesome. They had it charged for me fully when I got there, which I thought was incredibly thoughtful.
What's the guy's name at Jackalope? I'm drawing
Johnny.
Johnny.
Yeah.
Shout out Johnny.
Bravo.
Yeah. Johnny Bravo. Yeah.
What a name. What a guy. But
he's good with names. He's had a good name and a good business name.
Yeah. Yeah. They were awesome. So I got a new light. And I think when I was uninstalling my old one and putting the new one on, that I maybe pulled out my Di2 connection and I didn't realize it. And in the meantime, I'd left Johnny's. I went to Tropical Smoothie. I checked in a hotel because I saw that there was a massive storm coming. This was like I had 150 miles to go and I was tired. I'd had a really long stretch. And I was like, I'm going to check in a hotel. I'm going to see what the storm's going to do. And I'm going to sleep for a little bit while it brews. And then I'll wake up and I'll know, like, at least I'll have rested and charged everything up and be ready to tackle like a full-on storm on my last day. So I decided to rest. And that was a really great decision because like the worst of the storm went by. And I did ride in like really hard rain for like 17 hours the last day. But because I had rested, because I'd charged everything, like I had full batteries and physically and, gear wise.
Yeah.
But I took off that morning and got like maybe, I don't know, like 5 miles down the road, went to shift my little ring and nothing shifted. And I was like, oh man, did I forget to charge my battery? Like I knew I'd charged my Di2 battery when I was at the hotel. So I checked the battery connection, plug it in and, let it charge for a minute and nothing's happening, like no action whatsoever. I was like, dang it, I can't figure this out. So I check all the connections and it looks fine. Like I check where it goes into the derailleur. That was fine. And I was like, this is weird. And so I actually called Ernie at the time. I think it was like 1 a.m. or so. And he answers. And I was like, hey.
In the hospital?
No, he was at home at this point.
Okay.
He was at home. And
more foreshadowing. We're building this up.
I was like, hey, I have no shifting in my front and I've checked all my connectors. And he goes, okay, well, I remember that extra E-wire that I packed you. And I was like, oh yeah. He's like, well, try plugging that in from your front shifter to the junction box and see if that works. Like unplug your front shifter from the junction box and plug the new wire in. Maybe it's the wire, like maybe something happened in there. So I did that and still nothing. And when I went to re-plug the initial wire back in, I realized there were 2 wires that I hadn't seen that had gotten unplugged from my junction box, and that's all it was. They hadn't come fully out of the junction box, but they also weren't fully engaged. And so I highly recommend if you have any sort of electronic shifting that you pack the E-tool with you. Do you know what an E-tool is?
I've never done the electronic shifting.
Okay, well,
so, no.
These junctions are very hard to connect with your stupid fingers on day 5. Like anyone who's bike packed for days on end knows that your hands are just dumb at the end of 5 days. And I had like fiddled with it and it felt like it had made the connection, but an E-tool actually gets in there and pushes the wire into the junction boxes a full click. Yeah. And that's what it's made to do. It's made to be the tool that makes the junction. And so
sounds like a terrible design for bike packers.
It
it's
is
great
and
if
it
you're
isn't.
like in a workshop at a bike shop and you're just like, oh yeah, get the tool and plug it in.
Yeah, when we were packing our stuff, Ernie's like, make sure you have your E-tool. And I was like, okay. I'd never used one before, but because I had it, like it saved that experience, or else I was gonna have to big ring it home, and I had like 2 major mountain passes, so that was gonna be really hard. Probably more walking. And so thank God that was all it was. It wasn't really a mechanical so much as just spotting what the problem was. So anyway, got through that. The last day was playing catch up with my drivetrain. The roads were so nasty. It rained the entire last day that I was out there and my drivetrain just sounded destroyed.
Yeah.
And so every hour or so I would get off the bike, clean the chain, relube the chain. And like 5 minutes later, it sounded the same as it did before, but I was just trying my best to like maintain the life of it while I could, because it was grinding really hard.
Were you worried about even making it to the finish on that drive chain?
A little bit,
yeah,
because the shifting was starting to get a little bit off, and like just the way it sounded, it sounded like my cogs were just being sheared down to nubs, But
pretty soon you'll be just sliding.
I know. I was like, please get me home. So it was fine, but I did try and like clean my chain every hour or so, just to make it.
What was your goal going into the race? Like, what was your goal? What was both your goals? You can speak for Ernie too.
Yeah. Well, so the reason I kind of went in depth about what we learned at Atlas Mountain Race was kind of to set up for the fact that my goal for this first solo experience was to finish the bike race. I really wanted to first focus on finishing, and just really what that does is when you focus on just finishing, you take the proper precautions to do your ABCs throughout the whole bike race. It's like, okay, to feel good on day 3, 4, and 5, I'm going to have to eat and drink really properly on day 1 and 2. It's really easy to get caught up in like the day 1 race vibe, right? And like everyone goes out like a bat out of hell and you want to be up there with them. And it's like, this is a long fucking bike race and I need to take my time. And so, I think for Ernie and myself, I'm speaking for him right now too, but that was our goal, was to like get out there, do the best that we could do to stay within our own means and find ourselves out there. We'd had some amazing bike rides in these same places together. And the goal was like, okay, now we're going to be apart and we're going to just use this time to really get inside of ourselves and grow as individuals. And so, unfortunately for Ernie, on day 1, I didn't know this at the time. I passed him. Maybe he was ahead of me for like.
Before you tell the story, any competitiveness between y'all two? Any like I'm gonna kick your ass?
He is not competitive with me. Like not a grain in his body is competitive with me. I, on the other hand, love to compete with him. Like I'm always competing with him, and he gives me grief about that. He's like, "I'm not your competition." I'm like, I know.
I'm your husband.
I know, right? But I like pushing.
You like a carrot or
yeah,
whatever.
I do.
I mean,
I do.
You're
He's
a
like the
competitive
ultimate
person,
carrot.
obviously.
Yeah, he's the ultimate carrot because he's in front of my face every day. So, and he is a very strong bike rider, and I fully expected him to be way ahead of me at this bike race. And so I passed him at mile 50. I think he flatted. That's why I passed him.
Okay.
And I kind of checked on him, said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm good. I'm fixing a flat." So I rolled on. Fully expecting.
Did she check on you? Or she just rolled? Yeah, she just rolled.
Well, what am I supposed to do? It's self-supported.
Yeah, self-supported. Just be honest about it. You're like, he's not bleeding.
Exactly.
You did a visual inspection.
I did a visual.
He's not bleeding.
There was no emergencies. He looked salty.
I'm here to do that.
He did look very salty, which is normal for Ernie. He loses a lot of salt in his sweat.
Oh, you mean like literally? I was thinking like personality salty. He was like.
No, literally white with salt. And I did notice that. And like I did slow down for him. He's shaking his head, but I slowed down and asked if he was okay. He said, "Yeah, I'm fixing a flat." And so I rolled on, thinking that surely within like 20 minutes he would pass me again.
Right.
Well, I never saw him again. And so I thought that's really weird. And in my mind at the time, I was like, maybe his flat continued to be a problem. Like maybe he's having a lot of flat issues. I think later on that afternoon, I was at a resupply point and I loaded the tracker and he was like 10 miles behind, but he was moving. And I was like, oh, good. He must have fixed whatever it was. And so my goal for the first day was to make it to Whit Springs, which is about 240 miles. It's a big first day, but it's also the easiest of the terrain of the whole high country course.
Clockwise.
I went clockwise. And for the first like 100 miles, it's not super technical or hilly per se compared to the rest of the course.
Right.
And so I did make it to Whit Springs before stopping. Got there, slept just a short little bit. I was so amped up, I couldn't really sleep. And that's typical for me on the first night. I just am very high energy person. And
why not just go? Why not just keep riding?
Well, I did.
Oh.
I slept for about 45 minutes. I made myself rest just for a little bit.
Okay.
And then when I realized like I was not going to get any deep sleep, I had set my alarm for 2 hours, but after 45 minutes, I got up and left.
That's good.
Little did I know. So I had checked the tracker. Ernie's tracker wasn't like doing real time for some reason. And it showed that he was 30 miles behind. And I was like, oh, he must be having a rough day. You know, he was actually right behind me and I didn't know it, but I left. And after the race was over, the guys that were at Whit Springs told me that I missed him by like 2 minutes.
Whoa.
And then he was right on my heels.
Whoa.
And I didn't know it. So I took off and I ended up getting past. So I was in the lead when I took off from Whit Springs, and then
the lead of the whole race.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not between you and Ernie, just to be clear.
Yeah. And then on day 2, I got passed by the 2 guys, Spencer and Josh. They passed me both at different times. And I never saw Ernie. And I was like, how weird. Like, he must be really struggling. And so I I don't check my tracker all that much, maybe once or twice a day.
Yeah.
And
how concerned were you with Ernie? I mean, were you just more
He
like
is so-
interested in like where he's at?
yeah,
I mean,
mostly he's
not
so
like-
capable.
Yeah.
Like
you're not like
he
worried.
always has taken care of everything that happened to me. And so I was like, surely he can take care of himself, right?
Right.
So I had no idea that at the end of day 2, he had checked himself into an emergency care clinic and was like full body cramping. It turns out he had a condition called Rhabdo is the short name for it. It has a very long clinical name, but it's basically like your body is breaking down protein, and the strain that it puts on your kidneys causes like major malfunction of electrolyte imbalance. And so when he had gotten to the emergency care clinic, they actually sent him straight to the hospital because they said that he was in such a bad state with his kidneys that he was going to need like overnight care. And so he ended up having to get like 7 IV bags of fluid. Wow. He was so severely dehydrated, and he was drinking. It wasn't like this guy has never done a bike ride before. Yeah. And so it was really a conundrum to him, like why his body responded in that way in this certain experience.
Do you know why?
We still don't know why it was so severe. He's had cramps before, but they've been isolated to like the quad or his calf, but he said even his like fingers and like his neck and his abdomen.
7 IVs. I mean, you've got to be extremely deficient in so much of your fluids.
Yep.
Like, I don't even know how that's possible.
Yeah.
So they didn't tell y'all like what caused that or
well,
like
they
how
said
to
that doing an extreme bike race caused that. I mean, we're like, well, duh, Thanks, doctor.
So how do you do this? Let's see. You ride a bike 1,000. Actually, he only made it a few hundred.
Yeah, he made it like 300 some. And so I think I found out. No, I didn't find out. I woke up after my second little sleep, which was like 450 miles in, and I checked the tracker. And I see that Ernie's still in Mount Ida, which is now like 100 miles behind. I'm like, oh man, something's wrong. So I call him and he doesn't answer. So I call him again and he doesn't answer. And I send him a text. I'm like, hey, just let me know if you're okay, please. Yeah. Cause like I'm married to you and I care.
We have kids.
Yeah.
I had plans.
And so I didn't hear from him. And so I carry on. I carry on with my own thing, and I go through Little Rock, which is where we used to live for years. We lived in Little Rock, Arkansas, and one of our friends came out in a truck to like cheer me on, just kind of like a trail angel, just to say hello. And he pulls up beside me in his truck, and he's like, "Hey, you're killing it. You're doing so great. I'm sorry to hear about Ernie." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he saw the look on my face. He's like, "You don't know?" And I was like, no, would you mind filling me in?
Like right now?
Because Ernie won't answer his phone. And he was like, well, he's stable. Like that's what he started like trying to calm me down. He's like, he's doing fine.
He's not dead.
Yeah, he's doing fine, but he is in the hospital. He's had to get several IVs from what I understand. And I was like, that guy. So I call him again after my friend like takes off down the road. I call Ernie again and he picks up this time. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, what, are you okay? And he's like, well, I'm in the hospital and they transported me to Little Rock because Mount Ida didn't have the care that they thought I needed. And he started explaining what happened. And I was like, why didn't you tell me? And he's like, well, there's nothing you could have done about it. I was like, yeah, that's true. Like, I couldn't have done anything to help him in that moment. And we had that conversation before the race started. Like if anything weird had happened, we wanted each other to carry on like that. And if it wasn't like a near-death experience, then we wanted each other to keep on. There is no reason. Like if something had happened to me, there's nothing he could do.
Yeah.
And if something happened to him, there's nothing I could do about it. And so
it seemed like such a Ernie thing to do.
Yeah.
But what little I know of either of y'all, I mean, from your stories that I've gathered, I'm just like, yep, that's Ernie.
He really
just go to the hospital, get 7 IVs, and like,
not
just let you do your. I mean, good point. I mean, what are you gonna do? And you were obviously having a very good race. You were doing very well, and so
he knows how much mental focus a race like that takes.
Right.
And so he knew that if he had called me when he was in that kind of like emergency status, it would have freaked me out. So he waited to talk to me until he had been almost kind of released by the medical community to, hey, you're going to be fine. We just need to get your fluids back to normal, your electrolyte levels back to normal. And so he called me very like calmly and explaining the situation in a normal voice. And I think, you know, he knew that would be a lot easier for me than if he had called me when he checked into the hospital, not knowing what was going on, you know? So in that respect, he really allowed me to continue on with my race without a lot of worry. He knew that would have been like a major distraction to have been worrying about if he was okay. And so he got a lot of crap from our friends for not telling me.
What about you? What about from you? Do you appreciate that? Or did he get flack for it too?
You know, at first I was kind of upset because I was wondering what had happened. And I kind of expected at least like a text explanation. But I understand why he did what he did. And I think if the shoe was on the other foot, I mean, if it had been me, I would have been like, wow, there's literally nothing Ernie could do to help me right now. The medical community can help me right now. And like, I would have wanted him to continue on too. So I totally understand why he did what he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ernie, were you scared?
Yeah. A little bit.
You want to come over here real quick?
Sure.
Just for two minutes or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Hi, guys. Yeah, I mean, I was scared a little bit. I think when an ER doctor is telling you that the numbers he's never seen in his life, and that I should be having a heart attack or dialysis, then I was a little scared.
Yeah, I mean, what? But you tell your story. I mean, you know, like you're riding along and everything's cramping, and
Yeah, I mean, I'm riding along, everything's cramping, and I decide to like take an 8-hour, you know, overnight, you know, rest so I can probably like just come back to life basically from the cramps. And I got plenty of water, plenty of food, got a hotel, you know, soaked in a bathtub, started drinking like a bunch of water, and I couldn't keep it down. So I was.
Were you throwing it up or diarrhea or both?
No,
or?
I would sip a little bit of water, and I felt like it was going to come back up. So I was just barely sipping on it. Wasn't, you know, didn't chug too much, so it would stay down. And that's when I knew I had to go to the ER so I could just get some IV fluid so I can be hydrated.
Were you just like feeling a way you've never felt before? I'm trying to like, you know, picture you in a hotel room in a bathroom being like, I've done a lot of shit and this doesn't, you know, I mean, because I'm picturing you being a pretty stubborn guy, typical guy. It's like, I'm not going to go to the doctor or ER and make a hubbub of all this stuff. Like, we're out here, we're supposed to be tough, we're handling our stuff. Nobody wants to call the ambulance. So I just have this picture of you being in a pretty bad way by the time you actually called for help.
I can vouch that he had to have been in a really bad way to seek medical attention because this guy never goes to the doctor.
Fair enough.
No, I mean, I guess I was. I wanted to finish the race, so because of Jay, of course, like you know the Moroccan story where he puts a guilt trip on you if you don't finish your adventure that you start. So I was like, I gotta finish this because Jay's gonna be pissed at me. So it's pretty funny because I actually called him and said, hey, is it legal for me to get an IV during this adventure race? And he's like, what do you mean? So as I was texting him that, a guy had taken a picture of me texting him that question. And he sent me I don't know how he got this, but he sent me a picture of me texting him when I wasn't cramping for like the 5 minutes I wasn't cramping. And he's like, you look fine to me. So I was like, shit, that's your response for me, right? So I kept on moving for another like 12 hours of cramping. Then I got that hotel room. And I never slept, well, I never tried to sleep for 8 hours and cramped the whole night. So that's when I woke up in the morning. It's like, all right, I got to go to the ER. Just get some fluids. I'll be fine when I get the fluids.
I would assume, just to clarify that, for anybody listening, I would assume that getting IV fluids is allowed. It's on the route. I mean, or even if it's not on the route, if you go off the route and come back on, I mean.
I asked the promoter as well. I texted the promoter and he said, as long as you are calling the ambulance or you're checking yourself in, everything's allowed.
Yeah.
Right. But then the whole USADA thing. And I was like, oh, like, am I doing it right or not?
Oh, USADA. Yeah, we don't got USADA here.
So exactly, right? Like, I just want to get home. Am I safe? But I was like, oh, that's a concern. So, because I don't want to do something that's not illegal. And they were like, yeah, as long as you can check yourself in or call an ambulance. And I was like, well, I don't want to do either. Can I just find like a med center that can give me an IV shot or something? And I couldn't find one at the time. So I checked myself in the ER room in Mountain Home. And I don't know if it was just a small town doctor, the ER room, that he'd never seen numbers this high. But apparently every ultra endurance athlete has experienced some sort of kidney malfunction at some point when they're pushing that hard. Yeah, I think.
So you researched this afterwards?
Yeah, it's after the fact. Yeah, so I researched it, and apparently it's a known thing. Well, I'm not saying that you need to push yourselves to if you feel like you need help, you go and you seek for help and do the correct thing.
That's interesting.
But I felt fine. I did not feel ill at all except for the cramps. So but when the doctor tells you, hey, if you don't take a ride in an ambulance to a bigger hospital, they can take care of you so they can start doing dialysis on you if you get worse. Yeah. I was like, all right.
Yeah, that sounds scary. Anytime they're like, we're not equipped to handle what you have going on right now, we're going to send you somewhere else. That can't be a comforting feeling. So how much of this is you not communicating with Scotti because she's doing her own thing and you were just dealing with your own kind of, situation?
When we started the race, we, like Scotti said, we told each other that we were just going to take care of each other to the end, and because it's self-supported, right? And we wanted to respect that of each other. And if she was in a troublesome spot, I would, if it wasn't a life and death situation, I think she would honor that, and I was trying to honor the same thing. But I got calls from the promoter, and I got calls from a bunch of friends. They're like, "You're doing the wrong thing." Family members, you need to tell Scotti. And I was like, "No, I can't." She is about to start her 600. She's at 600 miles. The last 400 of this race is so intensely hard that there's no way I can put that stress on her until I am okay. Right. And if I'm not okay, she can't do any shit about it anyway. So I just need her to keep on racing because this is what we came here to race and to push ourselves without any external family member pressures of life and death situations.
Yeah. Right? She had her own problems to deal with.
Exactly.
You had your problems to deal with. Neither of y'all can help each other.
Yeah, exactly. So as long as I'm doing the correct thing and she's doing the right thing, there's no reason for me to put that on her.
How do you feel about your wife's performance? What do you think about? I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Well,
she kicked your ass.
She really did kick my ass.
You kicked your own ass, and then she kicked it. Hey, you won, Scotti.
That's right. No, she kicked my ass, and she kicked my ass fair and square, right? As they say. No, but I'm so proud. I've been wanting her to get to this moment such a long time ago that I knew she had in her. So more than anything, I'm just so proud. And she's always been one of my heroes. Yeah. Deep down inside, because I know she has it and she can push. And that's the reason I love this woman, because she can push so hard. But she didn't have that. She didn't believe in herself for such a long time. So for her to come full circle and believe in herself and just push through and just make it happen. It's you can't be more proud of that.
It's a beautiful story, Ernie. This is why I like y'all, because you saw that 30 miles in on that first ride.
Actually, about 12 years ago.
That's what I'm talking about. At that 30-mile ride, right? The first time. Right, that's what I was saying.
Miles.
Yeah.
I thought you meant the first 40 when she kicked my ass. And when she went by me, I was flat.
No, when y'all first met and you were like, I see something.
It was at 40 miles where she dropped me.
Yeah, you always, I don't know, you just have a very selfless, I don't know, maybe you're an asshole at home. No, I'm kidding.
My concern for Ernie racing solo was that he's so used to taking care of other people that he doesn't know how to take care of himself. And
we talked about this on the first podcast, how he was the guy, he was the workhorse, like in the Peloton, bringing everybody bottles and everything.
He is the domestique, as we call it in
we all have
road
our
cycling.
roles. I don't know. I feel like Ernie maybe gravitates towards that a little bit more, where he probably enjoys supporting people and helping people and seeing the potential. And I mean, from a coach, if we're talking about like coaching and helping athletes like realize their potential, that is a great gift to have, to say, oh, I see something in you. Let me help you bring it out, you know?
Yeah, but the problem is that this time I would really try to take care of myself, and I had no idea. I have no idea what happened.
Well, that was, I mean, that's just one of those things that's gonna, I mean, you can't. Yeah,
you can't. So, but the other thing that happened whenever I was from Mountain View to Little Rock, because the only way I could leave that hospital was through ambulance with an IV. When I got to Little Rock, to a bigger hospital, they said that I apparently had COVID, and that COVID attacks everything that is the weakest in your body at the time.
Okay.
So apparently, like, my kidneys was so basically being wrung out that COVID attacked my kidneys, so it just produced more proteins, and they were a lot heavier. So I mean, heavy loaded with that they were trying to just process that, and that's why I was cramping more.
Yeah,
and a couple of the nurses were like, "Hey, when I had COVID, I was cramping." So because I was asking everyone, like, "What's wrong with me? Like, I feel fine. Why am I still in here? You know, why are my numbers high?" And they were like, "Well, sometimes COVID does this and that." Now they blame everything on COVID, right? So I was like, shit. Now I'm
that's
I'm
true.
a statistic. So exactly, I was like, they're like, "You have COVID." I was like, "No, I don't have COVID. I just been riding my bike for like 400 miles." Like, what do you mean I have COVID? If
Maybe that's what happened. Maybe that's one of the symptoms of bike packing is it gives you COVID.
Exactly. Something. It has to be, right? As soon as you strap a bag on your bike, you're done.
Well, Ernie, I'm really glad that you're okay, for real. I mean, like, I think the whole bike packing community was like, worried about. I mean, we never got a chance to be worried about you, the same as your wife. Like, you never gave us a chance to be worried about you. So I think it's more of just like, we're grateful that you're okay.
I'm fine. I think I was fine all along. So,
well, you were fine as long as you got the IVs.
Yeah.
That's right. I think.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you'd be dead on this side.
Well, it's funny because the nurses were like, "Hey, you're fine. This is normal. You cramp. You're gonna get 2-3 bags of IVs, and then you can go on your way." And I was like, "All right, cool. I'm coming to get you guys." But it didn't happen. I was in an ambulance back to Little Rock.
Yeah.
But
all right, Scotti, let's wrap it up, huh?
All right.
It's a school night. It's Sunday,
It is a school night.
and y'all have how far drive?
It's about an hour and a half.
Oh, it's not too bad.
No, it's not bad.
Yeah, and you're not living on a bus anymore. You're like in the you're living the
have
high life
We
now.
have
You're in a real house.
2-bedroom cottage.
It has a bathroom
It
and more
has
plumbing.
a real bathroom. Yeah, toilet.
So let me ask you the same question I asked Ernie. How proud of yourself are you, or what are your feelings? You've had some time to sit with this for a little while. Like, this was your first solo. And I mean, you beat everybody, the men, the women, and I fucking love it. Everybody loves it. You know what I mean? Like, I was just at Truffle Shuffle earlier today, and I was telling everybody I was coming to interview you, and I mean, everybody's very excited to hear from you and hear your story.
I think what's so special about this experience with the high country and being solo is I never went in to break records or win. Winning was never, I didn't think that was a realistic goal to begin with. So I never set that as the goal. My goal was to really find myself. And I think in winning, it's been a really special reflective moment of how it's come full circle for me. And going back to even that first test that my coach Kristen gave me with mental toughness training, I did a lot off the bike to get to this point. I worked on myself throughout the past, 3 years. And when I say off the bike, I mean meditation, podcasts, reading. I really dug deep to kind of peel back some layers of myself. And that's what I love about the cycling journey in general, is that it has life parallels. And I don't think I would do it if it didn't. For me, it is the place I go to learn about life. And then it's the reverse. My life helps me with what I learn on the bike. And they're always feeding each other back and forth.
Yeah.
And I love that about this sport. And I think it's so unique in that regard. I think it's just an incredibly special journey. And
Can I probe?
Yeah. Yeah.
So for those 3 years, I mean, what can you say specifically what you were working on?
Yeah, sure. For me, I struggle with time because I don't have the luxury of 5-6 hour bike rides right now. I run 2 businesses. I'm a mom. I sometimes have like 2 hours, maybe 3. Some days I don't have any.
Real talk. That's what I'm talking about right
Yeah.
here. That's what I was talking about earlier. This is
Some
true.
days I don't ride.
Yeah.
But I realize it's not just physical fitness that we're confronted with out in the bikepacking racing scenario. It's mental toughness. Well, that looks like a lot of different things. So to me, I started creating mini moments of uncomfortable things where I could challenge myself in a very small context on a daily basis. I used to never be a morning person. Like, I hated getting up early. And it started there. It started with me waking my ass up really early and doing something that I didn't want to do. It could be core exercise, which I'm not a fan of. It could be an interval workout, or it could have been like, I always have struggled with, when I go camping, I don't sleep very well because when I'm flat without my lofty pillows, I'm very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so I started laying like on our hardwood floor to meditate. Things like that. It was very simple. It was stuff I could knock out in 20 or 30 minutes. It wasn't like these hours and hours on end. It was just things that made me uncomfortable enough to not want to do. And then after
it's
the
you
fact,
training your brain,
Yes.
like who's in control
Absolutely.
here, you know, like
Yeah. That's
right?
it.
Right?
And lo and behold, I love getting up early now. I don't know, like it completely rewired me. And so I started doing these things, and granted, if you do one of these like a week, it's not going to make a difference. I started doing them every day, and I made myself do this just repetitively. And over time, these little 15 to 20 minute chunks started adding up into confidence that I could do things that I didn't normally do before. And then I was noticing different patterns were changing, and attitudes were changing, and beliefs were changing. And it was this difference inside of me. And I was like, wow, if stuff that I can do off the bike can make me stronger on the bike, then I'm really onto something here, because I can manage this.
Right.
And
you don't have as much time to do 10-hour days on the bike,
yeah,
but you can
I don't train nearly as much as I did when I was racing professionally, when I had really not a lot of responsibility. Like, that was a really it was an awesome time in my life, but it was also a very selfish time in my life where it was very much all about me. And I did have 5 hours a day to train, and I used to hate it. Like, I got to the point where it felt like a job. Right. And now I'm like, oh my God, I wish I could just go ride my bike. I mean, you always want what you don't have, right?
Yeah.
But I kind of cracked this code of like just mini chunks of being uncomfortable. It really helped me grow. I think that over time really helps people grow. And that's something that anybody can do.
So let's convert that to your success on the high country. Like can you give some examples of how that off the bike stuff manifested itself while you're racing?
Yeah. One thing that I did really well was I slept on a gravel road, which is something I never would have been able to do like 2 years ago. I mean,
it sounds so small, but being able to get good sleep and actually rest when you're...
Because I'd done this like hardwood floor meditation exercise, just flat on my back with no pad or anything, just like hardwood floor. I laid down on the gravel road, I started breathing, and I fell asleep. Like, it was like a trigger for me. Yeah. And so that's something that I'd never done before that I noticed a huge difference in is, I'm trying to think of other things like.
What about like mind over matter in terms of pain, discomfort?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Because I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this is the thing that I really love about this sport is that it is an equalizer in many ways between age and gender. Like you said, it's very much in your mind. And so helping people understand that you have a lot more control over this and not needing to train 5 hours every single day. Yeah. But if you can master your mind and overcome some of these challenges, I think is valuable.
It'll help you in so many areas. This is going to sound a little crazy.
Oh, good.
But I've learned to start talking to my body, literally, like out loud.
Yeah.
The first year we did the high country with about 70 miles to go, my right knee kind of exploded. And I remember telling you, like, Ernie pulled me with a dog leash to the finish line. Like, he towed me for the last 70 miles. I experienced that same exact knee pain in both knees this time. It was just as intense. But the difference is, because I had experienced it before, I knew I wasn't doing long-term damage. I knew that this type of pain is something that is going to happen when you make your body go for 900 miles straight without stopping, and you're going to swell and you're going to have these incredible discomforts, but that they don't last. They're transitory in that, like, a week later, I will be totally fine. And so I've gotten into this habit on the bike where I will literally talk to whatever is hurting. And I'll be like, okay, knee, I hear you. Yep, I'm pushing you really hard right now, but in a week, you're going to be like living large, in bed, feet up. You're going to be fine. Like, you're going to recover. This is all going to be good. And it's not that it takes it away, but it does take off the edge.
Sounds like another meditation.
It kind of is,
like,
I think.
Being in that moment. And I do believe in the power of the mind and through meditation. Like, I've worked through, like, knee pain specifically with cycling. Like, I'll try to, like, through my mind, like, meditate the pain away. You know, I play around with all this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, our mind is a powerful tool. And if you don't, you know, ding around in there and, you know, see what's going on, you're never going to find out what it's capable of.
So I know I'm veering outside of the bike world, but do you know Courtney Dewalter? She's an ultra runner.
I'm a huge Courtney fan,
actually.
actually.
Have you heard her take on the pain cave scenario?
Maybe, but rehash it for...
So if you guys don't know who Courtney Dewalter is, she's another just badass female who kicks ass in the ultra endurance running scene, often beats all the guys, like, just an incredible runner.
But what I love about her, just to say, I mean, she was like a teacher that just liked to run.
Yeah.
She wears baggy clothes. She's so, like,
humble.
Yeah, she's not what you picture as, like, an ultra athlete. She doesn't have a coach. She doesn't have a meal training plan.
Yeah.
She just is very good at running for whatever reason.
And tough as nails.
Tough as nails. I love her. I love her, like, unassuming humbleness and all that.
Yeah, I love following her.
She's great.
But she has this philosophy that she used to be scared of the pain cave, she would say. And she would try and delay getting there for as long as possible. And then she changed her mentality to, I want to get to the pain cave as soon as possible so that I can make it bigger, so that I can make my pain cave even more expansive. And so she has this analogy. She calls it chipping away at the pain cave. And, like, the sooner you can get there, the more work you can do and the more you can improve yourself. And I heard her say that once on a podcast, and I was like, that's so much what bikepacking feels like. You know, at some point, you're going to be uncomfortable. Your body's going to talk back to you. And even if you're on a casual ride, I mean, the saddle could be uncomfortable, or your lower back could start hurting, or your neck and shoulders. And, like, the bike has a way of, you know, bringing out body pain. And so it's like, if you're equipped to talk to your body and handle this kind of relationship between mind and body, I think it makes for a better experience overall.
I think we should also state that sometimes your body, like with Ernie,
just
is telling you something. I've talked about this a lot on the podcast, but it is interesting because we have these conversations with our body, and I think we find often that we're asking our body to do things that it's uncomfortable and out of the norm, but, you know, eventually your body will get on the program. It's like, no, we're doing this. Okay, we'll get on the program. But sometimes you actually just need to go to the ER. So there's a balance. But I mean, ultimately, you just got to know your body, right? And work through. Okay, I got another one for you. So you said your goal for this year's race was to find yourself. Mm-hmm. What does it mean to find yourself? And did you find yourself?
Yeah.
That's an easy one.
I think finding myself, I can only answer that for me. I'm sure it means a lot of things to a lot of people. I'm very hard on myself. I always have been. I'm just hardwired that way. I've always been a performer. I've always been the kind of, like, A-type person that wants to achieve my best in everything that I touch. And that's been good in some ways, but it's also really hurt me in some ways, in that I'm not very kind to myself. Like, my mental talk has been extremely negative. And that's something Ernie has, in partnering in a pairs race, has been very good for me, in that he will help me replace that negative talk with positive talk. So when I say find myself, I had to figure out how I was going to replace my own negative language by myself. Mm-hmm. For me, it was, okay, when I knew I had a plan, but I've done enough of these to know it never goes that way, right? And stuff happens out there that you just can't predict and you don't know. And some things happened that I didn't plan on happening. And because I had kind of prepped myself that, hey, this is just about you dealing with those negative voices, dealing with those like trigger points. This is what this is about. When those things started to happen, I was like, okay, this is what I came here for.
I'm in the pain
cave.
Now
I get here. Yeah, exactly. I'm in the pain cave.
The mental pain cave.
This is my chance to chip away and make my comfort zone a little more expansive.
Yeah.
And I really did treat myself better. I had more patience with problems. I was a better problem solver. I didn't get down on myself when I had to slow down. It's frustrating when you're a racer and stuff happens and it costs you time. Like, you always have that clock just running.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm wasting time, I'm losing time. But that sense of urgency can also bite you in the butt and really make you 10 times slower if you're not patient. And so I felt like in finding myself, that meant having a lot of patience with myself. And I did that. I actually finished the race without frustration towards me.
Oh, wow.
So it was incredible. When it's funny because when someone asked me, weren't you bored? I was like, no, I actually felt like I was in a flow state for literally like 5 days and 10 hours. I was so focused. And that's what I really wanted to get out of it.
Well, you went in with a goal. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. It's much different than usually when I ask people, what was your goal? They're like, oh, I mean, maybe it's just to finish. Maybe it's to win. Maybe it's this. But no one has ever said to find myself. That was never been anybody's goal that they've expressed on the podcast. But it's interesting if you approach it in that way. I like it.
Yeah.
Nothing
can take that away from you.
Yeah. So what is more valuable to you, that experience of finding yourself or being the current FKT holder and the 2021 overall winner of the high country race?
That was just icing on the cake, honestly. I didn't even know I was in the lead until about 80 miles to go. Like, it didn't affect me because I didn't know.
80 miles to the finish? You had no idea?
No, I had no idea.
So you were just flowing.
I was just riding my bike in the rain.
I love that. How great is that?
I didn't know because it had literally been raining on me for like 12 hours. So I hadn't got my phone out once. And I was just like, getting through, gritting it out. And I stopped at Ozark, which is like, such a godsend in the middle of that rainstorm. And they were
general
open.
Store, the oldest general store in Arkansas. Everybody has to go if you're ever in that area.
It is such a gem.
Yep.
Pancakes.
And thanks to Jackalope, there's a bike stand out there that I saw getting utilized on.
Super cool.
Yeah.
It is a cool place. But I stopped there to get warm for a minute and to eat. And when I was there, I looked at my phone and I didn't see Spencer's dot. And so I thought he'd finished. And I was like, oh man, if he finished already, that means maybe he broke the record. And so I didn't know. And about that time, I got a text from Ernie. He's like, Spencer dropped out with 45 miles to go. You're in the lead. And I was like, what? You know, like it was just a surprise. And so
that's a crazy story too. I'd like to talk to him one day.
Yeah. I think he had a gnarly last few hours there. But it was so unexpected at that moment that it almost was surreal, and I just kept on riding in the rain because that was real. It was pretty miserable, I'm not gonna lie. I blasted music really loud for like the last 40 miles just to like drown out the sound of my drivetrain. But when I finished, I think like one of the best parts was the community that was there at the finish line. There were a lot of people there, and just a lot of my girlfriends and women, even women that I'd never met before, were just inspired that a woman had won.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of women that came out to support.
That's wonderful.
And I got so many messages from from women from everywhere. Just like, this is incredible. Thank you for inspiring me. And that meant so much to me. I wasn't the strongest athlete, I don't think, but just had the staying power to see it through this time. And it was really cool to be able to translate that to the women's community and kind of uplift them a little bit.
It's a beautiful story. And I think it's worth pointing out to people listening that it didn't happen overnight. Like you have been working on this for a long time, and that's what you get when you work on something for a long time, So what's next?
Next, we learned to go suffer in the cold snow with the Fat Pursuit.
Yes.
I'm terrified of being that cold.
I have no desire to do that.
We have so much gear. It's so much gear to buy between now and then. It's ridiculous. Like, we got the equipment list of...
Yeah, you got to have the big puffy everything.
We don't use that stuff in Arkansas.
No, we don't know.
But Ernie and I have been talking. We're both going. And we've been avoiding this race for 3 years now because we're terrified of being that cold.
I interviewed Rebecca Rush, and she swore she would never do it.
I have said similar things.
But since then, she's been
clearly mastered it. Yeah.
So it's all levels, right? It's like, okay, we've done that. Like, what else is out there?
Yeah.
You inspire me. Y'all both do. I appreciate not just like your story. I'm so stoked that you won. Like, you winning for me, I don't know. It's awesome.
Thanks.
It's wonderful. But I love the fact that y'all are like this family unit that makes it work. If you're not a family, like if you don't have like kids and all those extra responsibilities, it's a wonderful thing, right? And like you said, you wouldn't be who you are without it. But it does make it more challenging, I think.
Mm-hmm. Word.
All right. Time to go back home to Arkansas.
Yeah. I know. I don't feel like I'm not. Not from that end. Yes, you're allowed to talk now. You've been such a good boy. You too, Ethan. Good job.
Whatever you like.
No, we're not going to stay in Tulsa. We're going home. Like it here? Oh, yeah, for sure. So make sure, you might have to turn it sideways.
Yeah, but I would.
Well, maybe both.
Do you want to,
Squeeze your fingers, bro.
Are they twins?
They are.
So not identical.
Yeah, they're fraternal.
Fraternal. Is it FR or FA?
Fra. Yeah, it's FRA.
They're froze.
Did you get a few? Were your fingers in front of the camera? Get like one more, because your fingers are like in front of the camera.
He's like, smile.
Thank you, buddy.
Make sure it's good before you just thank him.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Auto time?
So, Scotti, I need one more thing from you. You have to say something like, I'm Scotti Lechuga. I kicked the Arkansas high country in the teeth. Now go ride your damn bike, or something like that. You just have to end it with, now go ride your damn bike. Yeah.
Okay. I'm Scotti Lechuga. I rode my bike for 1,000 miles. Now it's time to go ride your damn bike.
Damn, she got it. Thank y'all.
Yeah, that was so fun.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. And thanks again to Scotti for making the trip all the way to Tulsa to come and chat with me for a little bit. As you heard, she also drug along her husband, Ernie, and her 2 boys. They were sitting in the room the whole time. And okay, so I was about to talk about how Scotti's kids came and listened to our podcast, and they were complete angels, didn't make a noise, and Ernie did a good job too. And so now Sloan is coming into my office, and she's going to be quiet while I wrap up the outro to this episode, right? Ooh, she didn't even answer. She just nodded. She is on point today. It was really great to catch up with both Scotti and Ernie. They're both people that I look up to. Always enjoy catching up with them. FYI, I was right. Pat myself on the back. Give me a cookie. It was episode 36 when I originally interviewed both of them. And that episode can be found in the show notes if you want to check that one out as well. And like I said, I highly recommend it. You got to hear a little bit from Ernie, but trust me, you want to listen to the full episode to get the full Ernie effect. Oh, and also, we did go to that big playground that she mentioned at the beginning of the episode called the Gathering Place. It's in downtown Tulsa, right on the riverbanks of the Arkansas River. and it is absolutely incredible. Whenever I saw it online, I assumed it would be like $25 a person to go, check it out or whatever. And it's totally free. I don't know. You just kind of have to see it. But if you're ever in Tulsa and you have kids, even if you don't have kids, I was up on that thing. We were zip lining. We were climbing through castles, going down slides, having a great time. But yeah, we did have a lot of fun on that jungle gym, didn't we, Sloan? Do you want to say what your favorite part of the jungle gym was?
The zip line.
Anyway, we did have a great time there in Tulsa. Again, it was awesome to go and see all the folks in Stillwater. Congratulations to Claire for putting on and then another amazing truffle shuffle. All right, folks. Well, that is it for today's episode. I've got packing to do because I just got back from Stillwater and Tulsa, and now it's time to unpack and repack because I'm going bike packing this weekend. Hooray! And the weather is looking absolutely fantastic. I can't wait. Looking forward to it. So I'm going to get off of here, get this uploaded for you fine folks so I can go ride my damn bike.
It was the middle of the night. You grabbed your knife and you held it tight. The sounds of beasts kept you awake. The sounds they made kept you afraid. In the morning, you packed your bike. Memories forgotten from the previous night. You rode faster than ever before. Was it your imagination or merely folklore? Fear turned into strength as you pushed further. Every pedal stroke stronger and firmer. Your bike feels weightless, your legs aren't tired. You think to yourself, just a few more miles. Bikes, oh death, bikes, oh death.